Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Pharmacy Cannabis Lecture Series. Each session is designed to deliver a small and in-depth dose of cannabis education. I'm Candace Hawes, and I want to thank all of our viewers and our customers from the Pottery, from the Pharmacy Santa Ana, Santa Barbara, and Berkeley for joining us today. In this session, we're going to talk about bioavailability. Bioavailability is a very important concept to understand. When selecting cannabis products, it's not just how many cannabinoids and terpenes your cannabis product contains that counts. The most critical factor for cannabis consumption is bioavailability. Bioavailability is measured by the percentage of a substance that's actually absorbed into the body compared to the product dose. Whether you're inhaling, ingesting, using a topical or a tincture, the amount of cannabinoids that you actually absorb depends on the delivery method, the product, and also on the individual consumer. To get further in this topic, we have two great speakers with us today. We have Allie Greenstone and Yousef Haddad from Mary's Medicinals. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background with our speakers, and then I'll get right into it. Allie Greenstone is Mary's Medicinals national educator. She began working in the regulated cannabis space over a decade ago in Denver, Colorado. As Mary's Medicinals national educator, she thrives on curating a higher caliber of cannabis knowledge, and she's passionate about all plant medicines. Yousef is Mary's Medicinals brand sales. Yousef has been with Mary's Medicinals since January 2018 and has been a cannabis proponent for over half his life. He's continually amazed by and inspired by the uplifting stories of healing that he hears from cannabis patients every day. Having grown up in the final era of marijuana stigmatization and prohibition, it brings him a special joy to see how far society has come, embracing the nature of the plant. I am also as well very excited to have lived through this moment in time and to see cannabis available to so many people and have the benefit that we have today. So I'm excited to have Yousef and Allie with us to talk about bioavailability. I'm actually a huge fan of Mary's Medicinals, so I'm really excited to have you guys with us. As you guys know, Mary's Medicinals is one of the leading cannabis brands. I'm sure a lot of our viewers are very familiar with them, but for those of us who maybe aren't, can you guys talk a little bit about Mary's Medicinals and about why the brand was created?
Absolutely, and thank you all so much for being here, and Candace and the Pharmacy family for having us on today. Mary's is an amazing brand that originated in Denver, Colorado back in 2013. There's a lot of brand respect and a lot of brand loyalty with Mary's. A lot of that to do with the fact that it can be found in 6 different states as well as Canada now. Mary's is female founded, and it was really based upon the idea of wanting to create a line of products that was really that kind of had an essence of the pharmaceutical space to it in terms of products with consistency, accurate dosing, reliability, and the same testing standards that are applied to pharmaceutical medicines. At that time, cannabis products really didn't have too much of a wellness focus and didn't have those kind of reliability aspects to them. So Mary's transdermal patches were born, the first product to really provide a consistent, time-release, long-lasting effect of cannabis.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember when you guys first started in Denver, Colorado, and I was so excited when you guys came to California because you're definitely one of those brands that stands out. And like you said, you're one of the first brands to actually introduce transdermal products to the market, and I definitely remember that. All right, so let's see. Let's just kind of give everybody a little bit of an overview. We may have some people that are brand new to cannabis watching for the first time. So before we really get into the concepts that we want to discuss today, can you guys talk a little bit about the cannabinoids, terpenes, and flavonoids?
Yeah, one of the most really amazing things about cannabis is how many different things are working together to provide this medicinal value. In fact, cannabis has more medicinal compounds than any other plant on this planet. So it's a lot of these things working together. And some of these things a lot of you are probably familiar with, and some of them we're still kind of educating the consumers about. So as far as phytocannabinoids, depending on how deep you want to get into it, phytocannabinoids are really, you can think of them as locks. Our body basically has an endocannabinoid system, and there are these endocannabinoids that kind of work as these little keys to locks in the endocannabinoid system. These phytocannabinoids actually mimic things that our body does. So you guys are probably familiar with things like THC and CBD, but there's a whole lot of different ones that we're just really beginning to start working with in the past, 5-10 years. Things like THCA, things like CBN, which is awesome for sleep. And most recently, we're starting to work with CBG products. And the reason that we're working with some of these more rare cannabinoids is they really do have some really awesome and unique medicinal benefits. And, another cool thing is that these all really work together. And a lot of times when we find these things isolated, they don't work quite as well. So maybe a year or two ago, it's happening less and less, but, you go into a dispensary and people are asking for the highest THC content. They're looking for the most potent, percentage, and that's really the only thing that they were looking at. What we're learning is that it's more so how these things interact with each other in our endocannabinoid system that makes a final product work so well. So, you have the cannabinoids like THC, CBD, CBG, THCA, CBN. There's a bunch of other ones too. And then most recently, people are really learning about terpenes. And terpenes play a lot of different cool roles. Aside from like the flavor profiles that we're so familiar with, things like limonene that we're tasting in our more sativa-oriented strains, to things like myrcene, who, kind of give these different flavor profiles. They also give different sensations. And so for the longest time, everyone was so sativa-focused, indica-focused, and we were attributing to genetics more so than things like terpenes. And there's also even things like flavonoids. And flavonoids also contribute to the flavor, but I mean, to give you an example, cannaflavin A and B are both 30 times more anti-inflammatory than like a Tylenol. So it's really all these things, that's something that we try to create. Like, for one thing, we use full spectrum oil in most of our tinctures, except for like CBN, which is a little bit too viscous. But we really do believe in this full spectrum, what used to be kind of known as the entourage effect, but really what we're kind of calling more now the ensemble effect, more so than one thing like THC leading the way and other things supporting. We consider it more of an ensemble. And I'm going to kind of let Allie kind of dive into that a little bit, because that's a nice transition into some of our new products and taking that idea.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think a lot of us folks in the industry are familiar with the entourage effect, and with this kind of new concept of products that Mary's has released called Formula. We've kind of taken the opportunity to bubble up more correct terminology. Entourage, by definition, actually means that there's one greater element in a group, which is really kind of the opposite of what we've been trying to say as an industry when we're talking about the entourage effect. So we felt ensemble was a much more apt term, really just implying and referring to the synergy and the harmony between all of the plant elements. And so we've really taken this ensemble concept and we've run with it. And I'm super excited because all the pharmacy locations and pottery do carry these products. And they're essentially based off the different bioavailabilities of the cannabinoids and the terpenes and how they all absorb and work with our body to really just kind of maximize the benefit that can come with, a multi-element plant supplement like these products. So we do have 3 new products on the formula side of things. One is the sublingual you saw on that last slide that has 5 different cannabinoids, including a CBG predominance, which is incredible if anybody out there hasn't tried it yet. A formula patch, and then a formula compound as well that also features CBG. And again, just each of these products have 6 different terpenes in them as well. So it's just really harnessing how well all of the elements of the plant work together to provide that incredible benefit for people.
Great. Yeah, people ask me all the time, like, does hemp CBD have its benefits? And it definitely does, but it's important to use a product that has all the different components of the cannabis plant, not just the CBD, not just the THC like Marinol or something like that, but you really do get an added benefit from all these cannabinoids working together.
Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Very good. So now let's actually get into delivery methods, because that's a key part, I think, of bioavailability, because each delivery method actually has a different correlating bioavailability.
So one of the things that Mary's has really specialized in from our inception is utilizing some unique delivery methods, that we hadn't really seen on the market before. The first one being our transdermal patch. It was the first cannabis transdermal patch in the nation. And really the reason, there's actually a few reasons why, we utilize a bunch of different delivery methods. One of the main ones is that different delivery methods work better for different people. Some people might find a tincture works better than a patch for them. Some person might find a gel pen is going to work better for them. Some people prefer capsules. So everybody's body is different. Everybody has their own, unique endocannabinoid system. And so by providing, a wide variety of delivery methods, this way we're able to kind of find the perfect choice for each consumer. We really do cover quite a broad base. So we obviously have our transdermal patches. We have the transdermal gel pens, and also our compound is transdermal as well. And so really the importance of transdermal, when you are able to go through the skin and get deeper in the muscles and the ligaments and the connective tissue and really bring the cannabis where it needs to be, it makes a world of a difference as far as how effective a topical can be. We don't even really, at least a transdermal patch, it wasn't really designed to be used spot specific. It really was designed to go into your bloodstream, into your vascular system, and give you a full systemic dose. What we've learned is that our patches actually can be used spot specifically as well. It's just you're going to get less of it into your bloodstream, so you're going to get less of a full systemic dose, more in that specific area. And then, of course, we have true topicals, things like the muscle freeze. One thing about the transdermals, it's kind of sad that people are still getting drug tested these days, but I'm sure you guys still have people coming in the shops asking for anything that isn't going to flag them on a drug test. And unfortunately, like our transdermal compound, the patches and the gel pens, when you're entering the bloodstream, you do run that risk. Yeah. Consumables, that's something that is very familiar to people, and that's why our capsules are really popular for a lot of people. A couple things that make our capsules a little bit unique is the fact that we don't use any gelatin, so they are vegan friendly.
Oh, nice.
Use an enteric coating, and really that goes back to one of our pillars of all the products we make is just increasing bioavailability. So when you have an enteric coating on a capsule, you're preventing the stomach from degrading the cannabinoids, and you're getting a lot more bioavailability that way. We do have vapes as well, and some it's a lot more limited. Some states where those are bigger than others. And then, of course, there's even some delivery methods that we're hoping to work with in the future. There's all kinds of things. If you've ever been in a dispensary these days, you've seen everything. There's powders, there's like asthma inhaler types of things, suppositories, lubes. I mean, you name it, it's there. So I'd expect to see more delivery methods from us in the future as well.
And what I think what's really neat about having all these different delivery methods is that each one of them actually has a different effect, and it could be a different use. So once you become really familiar with cannabis and how the different delivery methods affect you and make you feel, you can almost pull from the medicine box depending on how you feel. If one day you're having a lot of anxiety, maybe you're going to want the CBD remedy. One day if you're having a lot of pain, you're going to want, some tincture and, a patch or some topical. So it's really kind of neat because you can kind of pull from what you need to kind of remedy the situation that you're dealing with. So that's one of the great things about cannabis is that smoked cannabis is not like, edible cannabis is not like topical cannabis whatsoever. So if one delivery method really doesn't suit you, don't give up there. Try another delivery method because you may find something that works really well for you.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's get into bioavailability. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about this concept and help the audience understand? I'm sorry, can you guys see the slide?
Yeah, absolutely. Yousef, I think this one's you.
Oh, okay. You just had your name on the note thing I sent you. I'm very happy to talk about it. So bioavailability, you can think of as basically what your body is really able to absorb when you're putting it in your system. So, you can smoke something, you can take a tincture, you can do transdermal patch, and all of these different methods kind of have their own different bioavailabilities as well. So with something like a patch, when you're putting a patch on your wrist or say the top of your foot, it's absorbing through the skin into your bloodstream, and you're bypassing your stomach, you're bypassing your liver, and this is going to give you a lot more absorption, and which is really essentially what bioavailability is your body's ability to absorb what you're putting inside of it. And so when you have higher bioavailability, you can actually have lower doses. So one thing about our patches, even though they're only 20 milligrams, you get 8 to 12 hours of consistent relief because you have a lot higher of a bioavailability. And something like our tincture, when you use a specific oil, something like safflower oil, which is what we use, you're going to have a lot better absorption. Kind of one for the more cannabis nerds out there, one kind of interesting thing, oleic acid is one of the things that makes our transdermal products really transdermal. And safflower oil is actually very high in oleic acid as well. So if you can think of oleic acid as helping absorption through the skin, it also helps with absorption, on the inside of the body as well. So we're always taking bioavailability into consideration whenever we're formulating any of our products. And, a lot of our customers really appreciate the fact that they can buy one of our products and they can see our milligrams. And a lot of times I've been told, your milligrams outweigh the milligrams of another product from another line. So that's always something to think about. And it also helps for things like, tolerance and things like that, which Allie's going to get to in a little bit. And so here's this slide kind of showing the differences between bioavailabilities of the different ingestion methods. So, edibles is about 6 to 10%. Topicals that aren't transdermal, you're not really going to be absorbing. So that's at 0. Sublinguals are typically going to be 15 to 20%. Inhalables at 15 to 20%. And I believe we have another slide that's going to really showcase how we really like to bring that bioavailability a lot higher than kind of what the standard is. And so this slide right here is kind of going into what I was talking about earlier with the safflower oil base helping with the remedy oils. The enteric coating really helps with the capsules. Terpene enrichment, reintroducing those terpenes is just going to help those cannabinoids do their job better. So whenever we can, we really do like to reintroduce those terpenes because things like our patches, we do have to use distillate. And if you guys don't know distillate, part of that process is the removal of terpenes. So in a case like that, we want to give the things that make cannabis such a great medicine back, and we put those back in there. Transdermal methods, we spoke about that as well in our compound, in our gel pens, in our patches. And so by utilizing these techniques, I believe the next slide is going to show how we have that really increased bioavailability. So with a patch, you're getting up to 70 to 80%. With capsules, 50%. As you can see, our sublinguals are generally a lot higher than some of the other ones on the market, and a lot of that has to do with the base oils that we're using.
Yeah. So basically, if somebody is taking 10 milligrams of your product, they're actually getting 7 to 8 milligrams. Whereas in the other slides you showed, sometimes you're taking 10 milligrams and you're only getting 1.5 milligrams.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes when you take an edible, it hits you so much harder than when you smoke cannabis. It's the bioavailability and how much you're actually getting in your system. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of cannabis consumers that are smart shoppers, and they always want to try to make sure that they're getting the most for their money. So it's definitely important to look at those delivery methods that have the best bioavailability and the best products that have formulas that increase bioavailability, because you're getting the most out of your money. And again, I think that's one reason with Mary's Medicinals, you only need 10 drops instead of a whole dropper full of liquid,
Right. And I mean, really the whole ideology behind having higher bioavailability products has always been about regimen users, or who we used to refer to as patients. We've really created this optimal product line for those who are using cannabis routinely. The beauty of having better absorbing products like Mary's is that our products can not only be dosed lower to be able to initially start with a low dose, but because of that heightened bioavailability, folks can maintain at that lower dosage, as opposed to edibles or smokable products that have low bioavailability where you have to consistently increase your dose, sometimes even day to day. I know when I talk to bud tenders about this, they usually can relate. Somebody will eat a 10 milligram chocolate chip cookie one day, eat the same 10 milligram chocolate chip cookie the next day, and already the effect isn't as intense as it was the day before. And that's because of that really, really low bioavailability. So these traditional and more popular consumption methods, being inhalables and edibles, they're really the most inefficient for regimen users because of this bioavailability piece. When you have these more better absorbing products like Mary's, again, you can keep tolerance low. You can keep your endocannabinoid system more reactive or responsive, and ultimately your costs stay low as well. And in our opinion, there's really no two more important factors than costs and tolerance when it comes to any regimen, but especially when you're talking about cannabis, that usually has a nice price tag added onto it. So,
yeah. So that was a really great segue into kind of talking about tolerance, which is a big issue. I get asked all the time by the seniors that I consult with, why, they're needing to have so much more, or it's just not really working for them anymore. And they wonder why. And it's all because of tolerance. Just like when you take a pharmaceutical medicine, the first times you take it, it might make you sleepy or drowsy, and there's warnings. Same thing with cannabis. The more tolerant you get to it, fortunately with cannabis, some of the negative side effects actually go away. Like you get less sleepy, less hungry, less sedate, and you actually get some of the more pleasurable benefits, the health benefits from cannabis. But tolerance is definitely a real thing that you deal with as a cannabis user.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a really good question to kind of ask yourselves as consumers is, how much cannabis is it going to take for me to remedy a flare up? And whether we're talking about something mental, like a panic attack, or something physical, like throwing out your back, based upon your current regimen, how much more cannabis will you need to ingest to get your ECS, your endocannabinoid system, reacting how you would want it to resolve that issue? And if you're already consuming, a high dosage of edibles daily, or using a lot of flower or a lot of concentrates, you're going to need that much more cannabis to, again, kind of get the effect that you're looking for to remedy in that time of need. There are actually studies out of Israel, multiple studies out of Israel, that prove that lower dosages of cannabis are far more effective than higher dosages. So we've really, again, just kind of embodied that microdose ideology and tied it in with that high bioavailability to really just provide that knockout product for those folks that want to be able to keep their tolerance low and manageable.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point. Cannabis is biphasic, and some people don't know this. So cannabis can have a different effect in a low dose versus a high dose.
Right.
So with THC at a low dose, it can actually help prevent anxiety. At a high dose, it can bring on anxiety.
Yes.
They're finding CBN at low doses, can actually energize you, but at high doses, it actually can make you sedate. Same thing with THC. Low doses can suppress appetite. High doses is what gives you the appetite. So, sometimes instead of, if you are a flower user, for instance, sometimes it might be more helpful to take like one hit versus if you smoke a whole joint, you're going to get a completely different effect from that.
Right. Yeah. And there was this one study that had 3 groups that were basically like low dose, mid dose, and high dose products. And they found consistently that the folks taking the lowest dose products actually found the most relief, and the highest dose folks actually experienced the most pain, continual pain. So there's definitely quite a bit more to discover on that front.
Yeah. And I'm really excited about, where the industry is going and how the government is actually finally to start letting go and letting other labs do testing and stuff. Because there's so much to learn about cannabis. Once we're only a couple years into like full blown research and peer reviewed studies and stuff like that, we're going to have so much more information, and we're going to be able to nail down, like, you need these cannabinoids at this rate. Because right now it is kind of, trial and error and, trying to figure it out as we go, because everybody's different.
And it's heavily anecdotal now, and just kind of passing along testimonials, which is a great way to share information. But, I can even see from the chat, there's, questions about clinical studies and exactitudes that we just aren't able to procure directly from our products yet. So, hopefully soon. But to finish go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said, we'll be there soon. Like, give us 5 years and we'll be in a much better place scientifically, I feel.
Absolutely. And just to kind of finish up with tolerance and tolerance breaks, again, because Mary's, offers that that higher bioavailability piece to it, you can oftentimes use Mary's products as a tolerance break tool. Say for example, you're consuming 8 or 10 pre-rolls a day, and for whatever reason, whether it's your lungs, getting tired, the cost benefit of it, you're just not getting that same effect that you once were from that many pre-rolls. But you're at this point where you feel like you need to consume this much cannabis daily to get where you need to go. Using something like a THC patch from Mary's Medicinals, putting it on in the morning or whenever you usually begin your medicating routine, it will saturate your body with the cannabinoids, but using so much less cannabinoids or a lower dosage. So when you're wearing a THC patch from Mary's, you might find that you only need to medicate with, 2, 3, or 4 pre-rolls, thus, not sacrificing your effect, but still getting where you need to go. And repeating that type of regimen a few days in a row, you're able to, inevitably the tolerance will fall. And that doesn't just apply to THC, really any of the cannabinoids. We run into a lot of people that we see that are really kind of flooding with cannabinoids, usually just due to kind of misinformation. Our bodies plateau, they max out with how much cannabinoids and any other substance that we can really absorb. So to a point, or at a point, it really becomes pointless and truly just a waste of resources. So again, there's some really cool ways to kind of use cannabis as tolerance breaks. CBN is a great tool to use alongside with THC to amplify those effects. So the options are pretty endless on that front with the Mary's line.
That's cool. You talked a little bit about transdermal products, and I really wanted to get into this because a lot of people don't really understand the difference between transdermal and topical. And I think that transdermal patches and products are such a great, misunderstood, little known about kind of section of the cannabis market. So can you talk a little bit about transdermal products?
Definitely. So transdermal products, they've really been such an asset to us and our customers because of really how much more effective they are. But really one of the big questions I get is what makes your products transdermal? So I'm going to dive into that a little bit. Really, the main, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the main transdermal ingredient that we use is oleic acid. Oleic acid, you can think of as like a healthy fatty acid that you would find in fruits or vegetables. So our oleic acid that we use is completely plant-based. And that's going to be the main thing. But we also use other things called permeation enhancers, things like sesame seed oil, jojoba seed oil, menthol, lecithin. And these things are going to help the cannabis work its way through the skin. But really without that oleic acid, you're not going to have a true transdermal. And we are lucky that really at the molecular level, cannabinoids are of the correct size. They call it actually a Dalton, how they measure the weight. And so we're lucky that cannabis is at that correct weight where it is able to go through the skin with the help of some of these transdermal ingredients that we use. In the case of a patch, it's going to allow for, I don't think there's really any other way to get cannabis flowing into our system at such a nice and consistent way, which I always describe a patch uptake as like sand coming out of an hourglass. So you're getting this very slow and consistent dosage throughout the day, which is really ideal for medicinal value. In the cases of our gel pens, when you use one of our gel pens, it's actually the second fastest absorption method compared to smoking or vaping. So really awesome for people that are, have quick onset migraines. They'll hit themselves right in the temples or behind the ears with the gel pen. And when you get that quick transdermal delivery, a lot of times they're able to nip that migraine in the bud. In the case of our compound, we spoke of that a little bit earlier, but just that penetration, our muscles are under our skin, our ligaments, our tendons, they're below the skin. So you have to be able to penetrate through that. And our skin does a very good job of keeping things out. But, we use just the perfect formulation to allow the cannabis to go in and really work its magic. So I've had a lot of people tell me, I've tried every topical on the market and I almost really gave up. And then they try out transdermal compound and it just kind of changed their whole attitude. And a lot of times, it's something that really changed the quality of their life. So it's something that makes me proud to work for a company that puts so much focus into maximizing the benefit and really changing people's lives for the better. So, transdermal, it's just like synonymous with Mary's at this point. And, we're really excited about what it does. We do have, like I kind of mentioned before, we do have a true topical, the muscle freeze, which I think Allie is going to get into. And, this is going to be great for those people, unfortunately, who are maybe getting drug tested or just too weary of having any cannabis in their bloodstream. And so we do have true topicals as well. But our transdermal line, the patches, the gel pen, the compound, and then most recently our formula compound, which came out with like a CBG patch. So, I think people, as every month goes by, I'm just talking to more and more people that have been turned on to the benefits of transdermal applications. So, yeah, that's pretty much it on that.
I was a little skeptic of the patches actually first, and then I actually used one because I had my wisdom teeth removed and I couldn't, eat, I couldn't smoke cannabis, and I was actually really amazed at how well it worked at controlling my pain. Like, I was so afraid to get my wisdom teeth for like 35 years, and I finally did it, and that was like really nothing. And I don't know if it was the Mary's Medicinals patch that really helped me, or if it wasn't a big procedure, but ever since then, I've been like the biggest advocate of these patches. And people don't really, I think, understand how well they work. They stay on all day long. Like, you can take showers, wash dishes, do whatever you want, go to the gym, and those suckers stay on. And also you can cut them into pieces. So if you don't want the whole dose at one time, you can cut into a quarter, an eighth, whatever, put it on, to get the relief. And then if for some reason, if you don't like the feeling, you can take it off, right? And like within like 10, 15 minutes, the feeling is gone. So that's really nice too for new users who, are like, maybe they'll use cannabis for the first time and they don't like the feeling. They can easily take it off and make that feeling go away, and then maybe try with like a smaller dose the next time. So I think that's really cool and not something that people know about.
And that's another cool thing about our patches is, if you look at our patches compared to some of the others on the market, where some of the other companies, they kind of just squirt the oil on there, with ours, it's completely evenly distributed and homogeneous. So it's very easy to titrate your dosage. Oftentimes you can make a patch last 4 days, and even for someone that maybe like, I remember myself, I was a little weary about the patches before I ever tried one, because I was like, is this just gonna be like a super heavy edible dose? So I was like a little nervous about it. You can cut it into thirds and just work your way up. And so that's another really great benefit that you mentioned there.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, as a friendly reminder, just while we're kind of differentiating transdermal and topical, because Mary's indica and sativa patches are transdermal, folks will typically feel an intoxicating or a psychoactive effect from them, but it's just that time release effect. So, if you're in a situation where you can't be smelling like cannabis, or you're working a really long shift and you benefit from consistent THC or any other cannabinoid, the patches, there's really nothing else that compares to that type of delivery method.
Yeah, and they're actually really priced at a great point. Like for $20, like Yousef said, you'll get 4 days relief out of that. And they're highly bioavailable. So if you're trying to be a smart cannabis consumer, like definitely look at the transdermal products. It's my recommendation. All right. So another product or another delivery method that I get a lot of questions and people aren't using it correctly would be sublinguals. So here's a little bit more information on the topicals that they have that are not transdermal. Those are also wonderful, and I'd recommend them.
Yep.
But let's talk a little bit about sublinguals, because I know a lot of people will like drop it into water, just, drop like a bunch in their mouth and like swallow it down, and they're not using the product correctly. So can you guys tell us a little bit, or the viewers a little bit, how to use these effectively to get the best bioavailability out of them?
So that's definitely one of the big things. Obviously, if a lot of people will put their tincture in their food, they'll put it in their drink. They're still going to be absorbing it, but it's not really going to be as efficient as having it under the tongue, absorbed through the mucous membranes, because that's when you're going to be bypassing the stomach and all these things that we've been talking about. So it's just going to be more efficient for everybody. And really one of the reasons why like our bottles are so small compared to some of the others on the market is because we found that, if you have to do 4 or 5 full droppers of something, it's inevitable that you're going to end up swallowing it, and you're not going to let it properly absorb under your tongue. So with our tinctures, you can do like a quarter of a dropper, like our THC 1,000 milligram tincture, a quarter of a dropper is already like 18 milligrams. And it's a lot easier to keep under your tongue and let it absorb that way. Obviously, if you are a regimen user, our sublinguals are vegan, they're sugar-free, so a lot of times you're not in the mood for something sweet, you don't want any calories. It just makes more sense to do a sublingual. One kind of interesting thing that that's been coming up a lot in the past year or two, and I've kind of been really doing a lot of research on, is just the fact that some people have trouble feeling edibles. Probably if there's 100 people on this call, I bet 5 to 10 of them will eat the whole bag of gummies and say, I don't feel anything. Or, they eat 400, 500 milligrams. And for the longest time, I thought these people were just like super badass with like crazy tolerances. And then I would smoke a joint with them and I'd be like, don't you need to smoke 10 more joints to get high? What's going on? So I kind of started figuring, this has more to do with just tolerance. And really what I've learned is it has so much to do with our gastronomy and the way that our stomachs process cannabis that we swallow. The most recent study I was reading is actually showing that there seems to be an enzyme that certain people produce, which is CYP2C9. I wrote it down because I thought it was so interesting. And basically what it does, if you, some of you might know this, but basically if you ingest an edible with THC in it, it's going to convert into something called 11-hydroxy Thc, which is a whole new kind of beast on its own. And that's what can kind of attribute that kind of, it's a little bit more psychedelic in a way. Sometimes it can make people feel a little uncomfortable. So it's different than, some people that can smoke weed all day, they're still a little weary of their edibles. And that's because of that 11-hydroxy THC. From 11-hydroxy, it turns into something called THC-COOH. And that's what that enzyme is doing. And these people, they have this overactive enzyme, and it is preventing the THC from turning into 11-hydroxy and going straight into THC-COOH. And that's why these people aren't feeling edibles. So I've had tons of people tell me dude, I got your 1,000 milligram THC tincture, thinking I'm gonna have to do my 400, 500 milligrams. This is the only way I'm gonna be able to afford it. And now I'm doing 80 to 100. Sometimes I'm doing less, it feels like I'm just having to do less and less. So, our tinctures are gonna be more efficient for everybody. But especially for these people that are having trouble feeling edibles, I found that it's been a really kind of cool lifesaver for these people, especially with COVID and people trying to cut down their smoking and lung health and things like that. Edibles weren't really a functional option for these people, and sublinguals have really been something that's helped them out drastically. So sublinguals are always going to be amazing. And of course, we are alluding to the safflower oil as well, which is just going to really enhance that bioavailability. And it's one of the things that makes our sublinguals so great. And of course, there is the full spectrum oil that we use too. We use really nice, high quality. You guys probably know the difference between, Danielle, I see a question. What was that enzyme? It was CYP2C9. I'll try to send you the link of what I had read there earlier. But basically, our tinctures, that bioavailability, it comes from being a lot more concentrated. It comes from having that full spectrum aspect, all of these things working together so well. So if you guys out there that are a little nervous about the taste of sublinguals, I think you'll find that ours are some of the best tasting on the market. You're going to get really the best bang for your buck. Our new formula sublingual has an elderberry blood orange natural flavoring.
Ooh.
And the THCA CBD that we just came out with is a really nice lemon ginger. So, I personally, sublinguals are really my favorite delivery method when it comes to the medicinal side of things. And I saw Candace taking a couple drops of her CBD before we started recording, so I know she's a fan.
It's actually part of my routine pre-webinar to really prime the endocannabinoid system and help calm me down and reduce anxiety and stuff. And actually the Remedy CBD one uses the almond oil, right?
Not anymore. Not anymore. They're all safflower oil now, which we did because of nut allergies, but the safflower also has better bioavailability as well.
Oh, that's good to know. So the safflower, safflower.
It's a tough one.
So that doesn't interact with people that have nut allergies?
No, safflower is basically a really close cousin to sunflower.
Oh, very good. That's good to know, because sometimes people will tell me that they're allergic to nuts, and that rules out a lot of products. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
And safflower is actually really good for people that have stomach issues. I mean,
Yes.
but when we started, our original tincture was the CBD remedy, and we used sweet almond oil for it. When we developed our second tincture, the 1-to-1 CBD THC, we worked with this kid named Colton who has severe Crohn's disease. And we found with him that safflower oil is actually the easiest on his stomach. So you might have people coming in, for whatever reason, some people have an adverse reaction to MCT or coconut oil, and they say that kind of upsets their stomach. Safflower oil might be a really great option for people that have sensitivity as well. So it's all around. I mean, safflower is great for the heart, it's great for the skin on its own right. It's high in linoleic acid, so it's just really a fantastic base oil all around.
That's great, combining all the things that are good for your body. Before we move on to another thing, I just wanted to mention too, we had a pharmacist on in the past, and he said that if people are taking pharmaceutical medications, and of course they're taking capsules, pills, that sometimes you can have interactions with, edible forms of cannabis, and it can lower the effectiveness of your medications or lower the effectiveness of the cannabis. So if you are taking medications, it's good to use a different delivery method at this, close to anyways the time that you take that medication. So if you're taking like pills for other, for your health conditions, then take a sublingual instead of like a capsule or an edible, so that you're using different delivery routes and they're not, lowering the effectiveness of each other.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah. So we've talked about so much great information here. I wanted to talk about one other thing, and that's when you shop for cannabis. So we have a lot of people probably on the webinar today that, go to a dispensary. Sometimes they're a little shy to ask questions and stuff like that. And so I like to always give them some advice when going into a dispensary. What's the best thing to look for, to ask about, to find the best product for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's just important to kind of, if you're new to cannabis or new to a dispensary, it's definitely important to kind of understand these different delivery methods. And I think it's also really important to be super communicative with your bud tender, based on kind of what you're experiencing and what you're looking for will really greatly determine what product or delivery method might be best for you. So understanding how long a product takes to onset, the duration or how long a product lasts, how many doses come in this product, what are the costs, what is the cost per dose, and also asking about bioavailability. Is this a product where if I'm taking 10 milligrams today, in 6 months, do you think my dosage is going to be double that or triple that or even more? So those are all really, really huge factors to kind of helping bud tenders help you find the right products. Also, of course, dietary restrictions or usage restrictions if you're unable to smoke, or perhaps you have an allergy to adhesive, which does exist. Those are obviously all essentials to kind of being guided, because there are certainly a ton of products in dispensaries, especially in California. So, these products will not only help you find the right thing, but also just to kind of narrow it down for your bud tender to kind of go the right direction.
Yeah. And I always suggest that people try to keep a cannabis journal. So, write down, what you ate that day, what product you're taking, how much you took, how long it took to affect you, how long it lasted, how it made you feel. And then also a lot of brands nowadays have like sample sizes or, like more affordable sized products that you can try different things until you find the right delivery method and the right dose for you. But it definitely is not something that most people get right off the bat. It takes going to the dispensary a couple times, attending webinars and different things where you can get educated on cannabis.
Exactly. Yes.
And don't give up. That's one thing. If you try one thing and it doesn't necessarily work, try some other things, because there's so many different ways to get it into your system, and it's worth revisiting, because I've just seen so many people's lives changed, and if they had given up on the first try, then I don't know where they would be.
It's also so important to know that any regimen, including cannabinoids, takes about 30 days of consistent dosing for it to build up in your system and actually realize the full potential. So, for something that's frustrating like sleep and using CBN, oftentimes we hear people be like, oh, I took it for 5 days and I didn't really feel anything. You got to truck through, you got to keep going, really hit that 30-day mark to then kind of reevaluate.
Yes, definitely. I tell people that all the time, especially with CBD, CBN. It's not something where you can take it one time and you're going to feel this, gigantic, benefit from it. You have to take it on a consistent basis, and it's going to take a while, and it may not be dramatic. You may have to just look back and be like, has this last month been a lot better as far as pain or as far as anxiety? Like, it's looking back really retrospectively to see if this product has enhanced your health. And I get a lot of seniors too that call me and say, I really didn't think that the sublinguals were doing much for me, but then I stopped. And then all these problems came back and I realized what it was doing for me. So yeah, it is something you have to commit yourself to, but feeling good and having good health is worth all the money in the world, right?
Absolutely.
We don't want to make it cost that much, but really, having like health and happiness is, worth everything because you can enjoy life, to the fullest. Well, I want to just now move on to some questions because we have some questions that came in. As far as the Mary's Medicinal product line, what would you suggest for someone with anxiety?
Sure, absolutely. So, I would kind of ask first if it was something more like along the lines of panic attacks, where it's almost kind of like a roller coaster where you might feel fine and then kind of have these spikes of anxiety, or if it's something more like generalized anxiety. If the latter, something consistent would probably be your best bet. The Remedy CBD, like Candace was using, would be a fantastic option. Or if you prefer something like a capsule that can easily be integrated with a vitamin or supplement regimen, those are really going to be the two most cost-effective options from Mary's for that type of regimen use. If it is more of like a panic attack type of thing or that roller coaster, our Transdermal Cbd Gel Pen is amazing for a 5 to 10 minute onset. You just simply rub it on the insides of your wrist, and it goes into the bloodstream for a super, super quick onset. So, and you could even use both if you experience both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. And I try to like incorporate like a routine, a ritual when I take products that helps calm me down as well. So, when I'm taking a tincture, I'm dropping it under my tongue, I'm letting it absorb into my mouth, and I'm like closing my eyes and I'm relaxing. I'm like center myself, so it's like a routine,
Yeah. I would also say CBN products kind of have a bit more of that sedative feeling to them. So something like the CBN gel pen or the CBD to CBN remedy, you can take in smaller amounts to have functionality during the day, but still get that relaxing, stress relieving benefit potentially.
Would you say that the new formula ensemble product is good for anxiety as well, or is that more like for pain?
The formula ensemble is just for so much. We're finding, and it's such a new product that we're still just kind of like rolling in the vast like variety of testimonials. You could definitely, that would definitely be worth trying for anxiety.
I was telling Candace before we started recording, I've actually had quite a few people tell me they're using it for anxiety specifically, and awesome. Mental anxiety, but also like I've had multiple people tell me it's like this tension that they carry in their body, and they really do feel it melting away. And from what I've read too, a lot of the research I'm doing on CBG is pointing to it being really, really great for anxiety. And so I'm curious to see if that CBG patch is going to be as good for it, or if it's kind of the mix of having CBG and CBD and CBN. And one of the things about CBN too, and why people are using it for anxiety, it does bind to CB1 receptors in the brain like THC does and like CBD does not, but not quite as strong. So it's not really like a full like head change, but it's definitely it gives you like this pronounced sense of like coziness. And I feel like that's why people are using it for daytime anxiety in lower doses. I know quite a few people who are using it to wean off of opioids as well. And I think it's really helping take off that tension. And so, CBN, while we associate it with sleep, it's not like an Ambien, where it's just like going to give you this knockout punch. I always describe it as very gentle and very effective. It kind of like makes your bed and it's up to you to lie in it. So it's fantastic for sleep, but I know a lot of people, including myself, have used it during the day at lower doses and get better too.
Absolutely.
I get a lot of the brands have different recommendations for like what is like a good starting dose. As far as like Mary's Medicinal and your guys's suggestions, what would you suggest is like a good dose for like a new user, and then for somebody that's like a regular consumer, like the CBD? Let's just say CBD.
Yeah, I mean, it would really depend on the product, because with products like Mary's that have the high bioavailability, it's nearly impossible to do the same price per milligram equivalency that you would do with like a smokable or an edible. So I would just say, for the patches, usually a quarter is a great place to start. The remedy oils are all dosed out for you as well. So it's a quarter of a milliliter. With the capsules, 1 would be a perfect place to start. And same with the gel pens, 1 meter dose. So with Mary's, we make it easy. It's definitely a bit too subjective to be able to say, this is the perfect starting dose for this cannabinoid for this individual. But we really, again, subscribe to that microdose methodology and just really starting low, going slow. And if you can benefit from a lower dose of cannabis, more power to your tolerance and more power to your budget. So that's really what I would suggest.
I like that. Wise words.
Yes.
Is there anything new and exciting that Mary's Medicinals has coming out that you can tease us with?
I think we kind of just released the exciting stuff last week. So that's kind of the biggest stuff is that THCA CBD tincture, which I'm really excited about. And then the full 20 milligram CBG patch. Those are going to be really the most exciting things. I'm so excited about the formula, and that stuff came out like 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Allie kind of knows the insider stuff. I don't know if she's able to disclose any of it though.
Yeah. I do know this summer we'll be releasing another version of our best-selling transdermal compound.
Cool. That'll
just be another ratio. So I'm excited about that. But I'm with Yousef. The formula sublingual, I've been using it daily for 3.5 months, and as genuinely as I can say, it's completely changed my mental health for the better. So if that's something you guys struggle with, it is just incredible.
That's cool. And then last question, is there things that people can do to increase bioavailability? Like perhaps maybe not eating before, or like anything that comes to mind?
That's a great question. It really... like with our capsules in particular, it's not advised to eat it on an empty stomach. But with the other Mary's products, also, sorry, I'm just kind of remembering this now, but being more hydrated actually allows for better transdermal permeation and delivery. So that's like a nice tip specific to Mary's products. But those would be the only 2 I can think of.
I've heard of things that I haven't looked into as much. Like I don't know where I heard it, but like eating mangoes has like some terpenes in it, and people will say like that'll increase. I haven't looked into it enough to really know for sure. I mean, the good thing about our products is we don't force you to have to do anything special to make them more bioavailable. Yeah. But that's a great question, and that's something we'll definitely look into that. And
I get the best questions. I'm like, I never even thought of that all the time. So, and then I have somebody that also asked, would Mary's Medicinal ever offer a package or therapist prices like outside a dispensary? Like, I guess, do you guys work with like any wellness spas or anything like that yet? Or
so I mean, our products aren't able to be sold outside of course, the regulated retail dispensary model. We do also offer hemp versions of our products that a lot of therapists will go to because they can use that, and they can also sell it in their practice as well. So if that's something of interest, we can definitely kind of refer you that way. The line is called Mary's Nutritionals, and you can purchase it online. But in terms of, working kind of like co-branded spas and things like that, we're not yet there, but it's definitely a direction that we want to go ahead.
Yeah. And a good point too is we have people watching from like all over the world, and we have a lot of people from like Alaska watching and stuff, and we have somebody from Illinois that chimed in. So for markets that you're not in, they can have those hemp products shipped across state lines, and so they can still benefit from like the formulations and stuff. But of course, it won't be like, have all the cannabinoids in there, but we'll have what's legally allowed to transfer.
But Danielle, our products, we've been in Illinois for quite a while, so you can find Mary's in pretty much any dispensary.
Very good. And just as a reminder, this webinar is recorded, so everybody is able to rewatch this. They can share it. It's also going to be on our Vimeo and our YouTube. I've had a really great time with you guys today. We've shared a lot of information that I know is going to be really beneficial to everybody that's watching, and I really appreciate everything that we've done to prepare for this presentation. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for this edition of the Pharmacy Cannabis Lecture Series. I want to thank our guest speakers, Allie Greenstone and Yousef Haddad, as well as the whole team from Mary's Medicinals, because they helped to make this presentation possible. I hope that we were able to share some information with everybody that helps you become better informed cannabis consumers and helps you find relief. Until next time, stay well and stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Candace.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.